tool? Well, I think it's the nature of human society that some people disproportionately benefit. And it's not just that.
Instead of raising the standard of living for U.S. citizens as a whole.
Well, unfortunately, in that regard, Ted is not 100% correct. I think that there is a question about where, look, entrepreneurs get wealthy. That's been true not just for the internet industry, that's been true for energy, railroads, and actually the people who say this is the most ever, I usually say, well, what's your historical analysis? And usually they don't have it, right? Because it's more of a rhetorical device than it is actually a substantiated piece of argument. Now, that being said, when you say, well, how does it benefit your everyday citizen? Is that your everyday citizen's using the internet every day? They're using it to discover information. They're using Google Maps to walk around the city and discover stuff. They're using it to determine which products to buy or not. There's enormous amounts of benefit there. That doesn't mean that it's perfect. There isn't things to fix. But it's been beneficial to, call it 30 or 40 people who started companies is simply incorrect.
We are going to talk in detail about artificial intelligence. One of the great fears about the development, the evolution of AI is that one of the first things it's going to do is rob people of their jobs. You seem to be the tech optimist who says that's a complete misunderstanding of the way AI is going to work. But the fact is, Elon Musk and many others who have been great advocates of AI say that yes, 10 years from now, many, if not most of the jobs that currently exist will be done by machines.
So when you look at this, I actually think what you'll find is that people doing jobs will be replaced by people with AI doing jobs. And part of what I think we want to be doing in society is we want to be helping those people who are doing jobs be the people who are replacing the person doing the job with themselves using AI. And one of the benefits of AI is that AI can help you learn how to use AI, can help you do the next set of tasks in the job. So now I don't want to undercut that transitions are difficult. Part of what I say in Super Agency is artificial intelligence is the cognitive industrial revolution. And I want that both to indicate the power of it in terms of the benefit to the economic prosperity of not only the society, but your children, the generations to come. If you don't embrace the industrial revolution, you fall behind in global economy. On the other hand, the transitions are never easy. And the industrial revolution transition is hard. And part of the reason I say this is let's try to make that transition better. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but better than we've done other transitions.
It just seems to be something interesting is happening in AI, which is in some ways analogous to what happened to the earlier sort of phases of the internet revolution. That is, a lot of idealism is being overtaken by commercial profit motive. If one looks at OpenAI, an organization that you believe in as a supporter and investor from the beginning, it began with this sort of mission for humanity, and it was committed to being not for profit. That's gone out of the window. I mean, now OpenAI, as I understand it, is absolutely about maximizing profit, and it's in a huge hookup with Microsoft, where Microsoft I think gets 400% of its profit. So, things are changing even as we speak within AI, and it is becoming much more an openly commercial evolution.
Well, part of OpenAI's journey was it's still on the mission of how do you build agent for the benefit of everyone. It needs capital in order to grow. The philanthropic capital market was insufficient, so converted to what we call in the U.S. a public benefit corporation. It's like a corporation by limited guarantee or something on this side of the pond. And that allows its board of directors and its executive staff to treat its mission as more important as profit and how it's executed. So it continues to focus on its mission, but the way to execute its mission, like many missions, is through actually what it needs is the capital that the for-profit markets.
Well, that seems a complicated way of saying that big tech in the name of Microsoft is now a hugely influential player in what OpenAI chooses to do, and they want profit. They want a return on their investment.
Well, I think the deal works fine, but Microsoft is not on the board of OpenAI. OpenAI has its own independent board. Like I said, it's a public benefit board. So the instructions, there are a number of boards, for the board to follow is following the mission.
This is you talking about AI, and you describing it as, quote, a desire to create new ways for people to attain more agency in their lives. And of course, you called your book Super Agency, but to many, AI is absolutely not about human agency. It's about machine agency. It is the opposite of human-centric.
So in these transitions, you always start with a transformation of agency, which feels like a loss of agency, not just because it's like, well, what if I choose not to engage in this transformation? Why is that transformation going to happen anyway? And the answer is it's going to happen anyway because technology will be built around the world, companies will be competing with each other, industries will be competing with each other, and just like any productivity metric within a kind of the free society and the free market, it goes that direction. Now, on the other side, just as when we got to the other side of the Industrial Revolution, you have a mammoth increase in agency. Sure, the person who is driving the horse and buggy carriage, or the person who is the independent weaver in their own house, their agency, the agency of those jobs has reduced, is no longer there. But the new ability to, for example, we have a large middle class, it's systems of democracy.
Hello. Marhaba. 2 karak chai, please.
2
karak chai? Yes.
And that's what I'm saying is, as you get through this transition, you get a much stronger agency.
But if you want human agency to be paramount, surely you would want human regulation and oversight of the rollout and the ever more complex evolution of artificial intelligence, and yet you seem to be an enemy of regulation.
Well, I may be focused on regulation for knowing that what you're creating when you're innovating is actually going to be so important. Because this is one of the problems that generally Europe runs into, is they say, well, we can pre-plan innovation, we can have a heavy regulatory regime that dictates where software should go. And it's one of the reasons why Europe generally doesn't have much in the way of interesting software companies building platforms, etc. You actually have to allow the development and the experimentation in failures as you're going in order to...
Well, hang on, but you don't have to sit by and watch as harms deepen as a result of technological development. And we have seen harms from the very beginning of this discussion. We've discussed some of the harms that have come with the digital age. And Europe's position is, no, we need to be proactive in ensuring that the public is protected from these harms.
Well, the question is, you will have some harms if you allow innovation to happen at all. If you say we're going to slow down innovation so much that we allow almost no harms, then your innovation will be much less than your other countries, your other industries.
Sure, but these aren't just any old harms. That we're talking about fundamental invasions of privacy. We're talking about the manipulation of young minds. We're talking about the spread of disinformation, which can have massive political ramifications and does in different parts of the world. These are harms that societies can't afford.
Well, but the question is how do you navigate doing them? If you say we must simply have 0 of them, then the other people who venture into it take the risks, take some of the pain in going through it, then build those tech companies, and then you just have to follow those tech companies. And I, for one, would like those tech companies to also be built here and also be built in Europe.
It's a strange sort of argument, because you seem to be arguing that in a funny sort of way, the evolution of tech suits non-democratic, authoritarian regimes better than it suits democracies, and that democracies can only thrive in technology if they, in a sense, control and reduce some of their democratic instincts.
It's not democratic instincts. And by the way, authoritarian states also frequently exert strong regulatory control to some limitation. It's allow innovation and allow some risk, and then fix it as you go. So one of the things I talk about in super agency is iterative deployment, and I use ChatGPT as an example. So people go, oh my God, I don't know about AI, but you can start using it and you can see how it can benefit you. And that's actually part of how we bring the public into the loop, as opposed to having for example, a government regulator who's sitting behind a desk who says, well, I think I know better for how industry should go, how technology should be developed. I think I can channel what tens of millions of citizens. It's let's engage people and learn from that, and then iterate as we go. And that doesn't mean no regulation. So for example, the car industry, if you said, before we deploy a car, you must guarantee me that there is 0 harm. You'll never deploy a car. You deploy the cars, and that doesn't mean no regulation, because for example, cars are deployed, no one wants seatbelts, the consumers don't want seatbelts, and so then society has to step in and say, no, seatbelts are important, and you add that regulation in, but you add it in as you're developing and building, not as you try to do it before.
Do you believe, if you look at what's happening right now, that the Chinese are not only catching up with where the United States is, but are actually in the process of overtaking?
I don't think they're in the process of overtaking, but I think it is, they are fully in it. And this is actually one of the problems when you get to how should we adjudicate what is the future of copyright law. Because you could say, well, okay, if you're training a model within Western ecosystem, we should modify, which I think would be changing copyright law to disable essentially AI training. The Chinese won't follow that, and they will produce open models like DeepSeek. So once again, you'll have a sense of, okay, well, that won't answer the concerns and needs of the creative community.
The Chinese have announced that there have been major developments with something that they're calling Manus AI, which they're saying is a much more autonomous form of artificial general intelligence, which seems to cross over to something new, and I guess the key word is much more autonomous. Are we on the cusp of something really important here, which again, it seems the Chinese may be moving on, certainly in public, faster than companies in the US?
The labs that I'm part of don't look at Manus as kind of cutting edge work. We actually already have all of that work. We may be slower in deploying it because we have all kinds of safety things to make sure that individuals and societies are, we do as much as possible to avoid harm. But like the notion of having some autonomy of an agent, like, and by the way, that's like go book a plane ticket for you. That's, take actions on the internet for you. That's technology that's also being built by all of the major, tech companies in the continent.
You say we are so careful not to do harm. The truth is there are many people in this space who are deeply worried about how fast it's going and how far it's going. Demis Hassabis, I'm sure you know, who won a Nobel laureate for his work at the origins of AI. He now says it's time for an AI sort of global supervisory agency, like a little bit like the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Authority, which controls or tries to control non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. The analogy is quite clear there, that there is a potential danger with the rollout of AI, which could be akin, in terms of threat, to a potential weapon of mass destruction. And he says it needs to be controlled.
Look, I think there's levels of AI that could certainly get there. And I think that the notion of, the principal thing that Demis and I talk about this is how likely is it we would get global cooperation. If I was a big believer in global cooperation, which, is roughly speaking, think about global cooperation and climate change. You can see the impact much clearer. It's not the vague possibilities of some possible future branches around AI. You see the temperature getting higher, and yet you don't have global cooperation. So I tend to be a little bit...
It's impossible.
I would love it to be possible. I have not yet seen it.
If it's not possible, then it comes back to where we began, which is about the level of trust we can have in the leaders, particularly in the Western world, of this particular technological field. Let's bring it back to you, and you have made it clear that you act for humanity. You've fallen out with tech elite members whom you used to work with, like Elon Musk, who you now describe as deeply irresponsible, what you call this nutty. Yes, you have a major span. Do you believe that people like Elon Musk can trust?
I'm trusting space entrepreneurship, I'm trusting car entrepreneurship. I think he's behaving responsibly with government. I think that's kind of set of considerations that go into a government. So, for example, one of the ways that a corporation, the government's different is I can take a risk with a corporation, and the corporation can blow up, and that's a problem for employees and shareholders and so forth, but isn't necessarily a problem for society. If government blows up, that's a problem for all of society.
But you say you really believe in democracy. It's important that the richest tech titans in the world believe and support democracy. But you've been accused of actually manipulating the public using disinformation techniques yourself. I mean, you've accused Musk of it, but you do it yourself. You did it in a famous Senate race in the United States in 2018, where it turns out your money was used to manipulate.
Hello guys, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you
So,
for being
first,
live.
I challenge your characterization that I did it. Right. Second,
It's your money that
Well,
the
look, so
campaign
I
turned out to be using disinformation techniques.
I gave money.
Thank you very much for being live. I hope you enjoyed the Rifa area of Kingdom of Bahrain. Oh, we are just going to end this live stream session.